Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Vapor's first virtual event of 2022. My name's Katie, and I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by Tim Mercer from Vapor and Sam Kitshar from LogicMonitor. Our topic today is Vapor's new application monitoring solution. We've got quite a lot of content to get through, so we're going to try and get through our slides as quickly as possible, while hopefully talking you through as much as possible, leaving plenty of time for questions at the end. You've hopefully got a chat panel to the side of your screen, so if you want to ask any question, large or small, as the event unfolds, please pop the questions in there and we'll cover as many as we can when Vapor and LogicMonitor finish talking. We have been encountering a couple of issues with the video, so if anyone has any connectivity problems today, just log off and rejoin. I might turn the videos off if it seems to be a recurring problem, so please don't think that you are losing bandwidth. I will manage that accordingly at our end. So just a quick introduction then to our two speakers today. As I mentioned, we're joined by Tim Mercer, CEO of Vapor. It's almost 9 years ago that he sold everything he owned to address a gap he'd identified in the market, delivering powerful cloud technologies that could transform the productivity, efficiency, resilience and growth of organisations of all shapes and sizes. Fast forward to today, 2022, and Vapor has an impressive portfolio of UK-wide clients, from ambitious SMEs through to household names such as Betfred and JCT 600. Vapor may have a well-stacked toolkit, but the company is as known for its team as it is its technology, and they believe in being ultra straight talking. So if there's anything you want to ask Tim and the team today, please ask. We're also joined by our special guest, Sammy. With a background in the finance and banking industry, Sammy's worked in the tech space since 2018, with notable roles for brands including Cisco, AppDynamics, and the company we're here to talk about today, LogicMonitor. He's an account executive and specialist in application monitoring solutions for the mid-market, so he's got a wealth of knowledge in this space, so I'm sure we'll learn a lot from him today. On screen, you'll see the topics that the two speakers are going to cover, so I'll hand them the control now of the slides. Like I said, please ask questions as we go. There's plenty of time for discussion at the end, and hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Appreciate your time. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to give you a bit of a background, really, as to why we're here today. Obviously, as Katie said, we've run the company for about 9 years, and part and parcel of running a platform and a service is making sure that you can monitor it successfully. And consequently, we want to put a platform in place, monitoring platform in place, that would not look just at the network, but look at the whole infrastructure that we run. So our private cloud in our data centers, but also our public cloud in our data centers. So that was the brief about a year ago into our engineering and operations team. It took us about a year to install and deliver with Sammy and his team, but we whittled it down fairly quickly to two main players. One was Splunk, which you'll know, you might know, but that's a big application monitoring platform, but also sponsors people in the Formula One industry, and LogicMonitor. Why did we choose LogicMonitor? As Katie rightly said at the beginning, we are all about the technology, but more importantly, we're all about the people and the support. And we felt that we would get much better level of support and granularity from the Logic monitoring team. And when we sat down and had a discussion with both, it became apparent very quickly that they wanted to support and help us. So shortly, I'm going to pass you over to Sammy. If you've got any questions, please shout, please ask. It is a different technology than what you would normally look at and what you would normally see. We're trying to help and educate our technical teams, not just here at Vapor, but our clients as well, as to how we can, as an example, how we can monitor and look after their networks more efficiently. One of the things that we get here quite often is my network's running really slow, and we raise a ticket, it comes into our engineering team, it might go to the IT support team, and then we can't find a fault with it, and then 3 hours later the client says, oh, it's fixed, it's working fine. And there's no understanding in granular detail of why that happened, but it's actually sucked time and resource from everybody. And consequently, putting this service in play allows us to monitor that far more effectively from an application point of view. That's just on the network. We're also then going to the cloud stacks, and it allows us to do the same now, beam backup. our AWS, our Azure, our Google infrastructure as well. So it's a whole round application and service. So with no further ado, I'll pass you over to our good friend Sammy, who luckily for him is in central London and enjoying himself by the looks of things. So I'll pass it. How are you doing, Sammy? Nice to see you, mate.
Very well, mate. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
All right, have I got control of these slides now? Yeah, like, as mentioned, again, if my audio cuts out for a little bit or the video drops, then please do let me know, and maybe I can turn off the video in the meantime. But yeah, first off, I wanted to say thank you to Katie for those kind words, selling me more than I think I should be before at the beginning there. And Tim, thanks again for all the support that you give to LogicMonitor and for inviting us here today to be able to share what we do. And finally, thanks to everyone who's joined and taking the time out of their days in order to listen to this. So my name's Sammy. I'm an account executive. I work with LogicMonitor. I've been here for about a year now. But before this, I was within the monitoring space. So I worked for a vendor called AppDynamics. They do application performance monitoring as well. So yeah, I've been in the space a while. So hopefully any of the questions you ask, I can answer them fruitfully. And if I can't, I'll definitely direct you to the right people that can. So the aim of this webinar really is to promote discussion around your monitoring and analytics strategy in terms of IT infrastructure, and to focus on how LogicMonitor can help. So in the 30 to 45 minutes I've been given, I'm going to go through what we see in the industry currently, some of the key challenges IT leaders like yourselves are currently facing, and how LogicMonitor aims to plug that gap really. So to make businesses healthier, but also to make your lives easier. So as you already know, the reality is that over the last decade, IT infrastructure strategy has changed a lot. And so the value of the IT organization has also changed in tandem. So yesterday's IT infrastructure, while complex, was nowhere near the level of complexity or distribution and technology diversity that we currently see today. 10 years ago, it's probably fair to say that most IT infrastructure was on premises, multiple data centers, and used a mix of VMware and physical servers. And the value of IT services, what delivered was different. IT back then was more about serving the information needs of employees predominantly. So tier one IT services focused on things like email, the intranet, CRM, and business applications. So what do we see today? So today, of course, it continues to evolve. I'm not saying by any means that this is the level of complexity that we are going to see going forward, but it continues to evolve, and the focus is about how IT infrastructure can support agility, cost control, and innovation. So modern IT infrastructure, as you know, is a mix of on-premise, private cloud, different hosting providers, mixed in with all of the AASs, so public cloud, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS-based applications, new networking technologies, infrastructure as code provision, and this means multiple suppliers to manage and multiple moving parts. It's not only internal IT services today that matter. Today's leading technologists are driving innovation and external services. So things like e-commerce, mobile, and new IoT-based services. The bottom line is that today's IT infrastructure plays a key part in driving digital business success. So all of you that are on the call today, more now than ever, are integral to the business's success. The employee and customer experience are both entirely dependent on the underlying infrastructure working and performing well. So the difficulty with modern IT infrastructure is that it requires modernization programs. And what we hear a lot from our customers is that a lot of enterprises in these modernization programs is really where their difficulties and challenges lie. So we know that enterprises are moving to the cloud to support agile infrastructure, but sometimes there is a cloud-first approach taken by some companies. And today, in many instances, it's not just one public cloud platform, but a mixture of private and public IaaS offerings, meaning hybrid cloud architectures. And cloud adoption requires new ways of working, a new culture focused on speed of development and delivery of applications. Hence why most companies today are moving towards DevOps. But this in itself means more changes in production. And from what we've heard, cloud adoption and DevOps are not easy. And this can lead to management and monitoring of tool sprawl. So, for example, AWS has CloudWatch, Azure has Azure Monitor, and in fact, we've recently done a survey, SurveyMonkey, which is lovely, done a survey to see that across our customers, on average, most enterprises will use 5 or more monitoring and management tools. And the result of this is that rather than driving further innovation and simplifying infrastructure management, in many circumstances, enterprises are facing fragmented visibility into performance and availability. And ultimately, this can lead to just rising costs, which I'm sure none of the people want if you don't get a handle on it. For example, the alerts from one product, but then support teams have to go into another product to look at log events in order to find out what is going on. Oh, I've gone forward twice now. So let's dive specifically into the problems that we see businesses like yourselves facing in regards to monitoring. The common reality that we see in many cases is that monitoring isn't strategic at all, but tactical. For example, products are chosen because of a new project that is introducing new technology that needs to be monitored. So it's a bit reactive. But this is not taking into account existing monitoring tools already being used, which then leads to the problem that I alluded to earlier, which is tool sprawl. So more data that isn't contextual and ultimately more confusing. Now, the challenge through our experience in this area is that a tactical multiple tools approach leads to, firstly, costly administration from a time, resource, and ultimately a money perspective, which means that it's impossible for monitoring rules, for example, to be kept up to date with new technologies. The second one is this emerging issue that I hear from pretty much every single customer that I deal with, is false positive alerts, or a sea of really, really difficult, not specific alerts, making it hard to ascertain really what the root cause of any issue is and to understand what's going on. And finally, the consequence of this is inaccurate information that can't be trusted, and it's impossible for your team to use monitoring tools then in a strategic way. So some quick stats or a few data points that I wanted to cover off before we dive into the product a little bit deeper. LogicMonitor today serves about 2,000 customers in over 30 countries, and we focus on helping both large and small enterprises. So whilst it is an enterprise grade tool, it's not specifically only meant for enterprise customers. And this is where the challenge of infrastructure monitoring is the most complex and the greatest. So 2,000 customers doesn't really tell the full story, because about 600 to 700 of them, like Vapor, are MSPs who then serve a further 7,000 of their own end customers, which is why on a daily basis we have 75,000 users logging into the platform, monitoring about 1.4 million devices across the world, and generating about 600 billion metrics per day. And LogicMonitor offers a cloud-based solution, so we're agentless, which then leads to companies being able to deploy a huge amount of devices very quickly. We also have 2,000 integrations. And what does that mean? That means that out of the box in the platform, what you're paying for is data sources that monitor over 2,000 technologies that don't need specific instrumentation and don't need any further configuration from your side. So some examples, even one of our sales engineers, he's a very interesting guy. He actually monitors the battery level of his kids' electric toothbrushes at home using LogicMonitor. There's a myriad of things that you can monitor using LogicMonitor, and you can get as weird and wonderful with it as you want. But literally anything with an open API we can plug into. And if there is a data source that hasn't been created for a technology that you do have, which in the time that I've been here hasn't happened yet, but if that is the case, then our professional services team can spin up a data source to support that technology. So we can cover it off from that perspective anyway. So all of this in total means that we provide rapid return on investment, in which you see the results in hours as opposed to days or weeks because of our agentless approach. So from looking across all of our customers, another survey, Monkey survey that went out, and we also have a customer success team that track the performance of all of these customers after they become LogicMonitor clients. Our business value assessments generated on average a 4 times return on investment within the first 12 months. And most customers see that they get all of the money back within the first 6 months. And that's ordinarily over a 3-year term. They tend to see that money back in the first 6 months of those 3 years. So some of our customers, modern IT infrastructure drives modern operations in companies of all sizes. So, some of our largest customers may have about, over 100,000 employees. Some of our smallest customers have even teams of 5 to 6. So it is really a big range. But yeah, they utilize the LogicMonitor platform to make it possible for businesses like these that you see on your screen to advance their technology and optimize their IT infrastructure. So for example, if we take one of our enterprise customers in the airline industry, so they're not actually on screen, the name's AirAsia. A little known fact, in order to back a plane onto a runway, it takes about 90 different systems. So think of all the systems that are needed to be interacted with even before a customer gets on the plane. So the IT services required to check in customers, to change seats, the baggage handling systems, the flight handling systems. And of course, none of these actually run in the same place. And all of these systems are dispersed. They're all on different infrastructure in different environments. And the topology that maps across all of those different touch points and services is incredibly complex. So we're working with the airline AirAsia to help them proactively monitor their entire IT infrastructure, helping them move towards an intelligent approach to management and really their IT infrastructure. So what does this all actually look like? I've got there we go. So what does this actually look like? So what all of these customers are seeing, I'm not going to go into a deep technical demo. I'll go into some more technical details in a bit, but I'm not going to go into a deep technical demo just because I don't think that's the best use of my time here at the moment. And also, we like to customize demos specific to each customer. So if you are to see one, it will be specific to exactly what you would want to see. So what we have on screen here at the moment is a high-level example of what a LogicMonitor customer dashboard looks like. So building out this, in this case, is a remote workforce overview dashboard. So that's what we would call that. Building out an overview dashboard can help you keep tabs on the growing list of infrastructures and applications which are critical for the business. And in this case, the remote workforce, and all of that from a single view. So what makes an overview dashboard really helpful? Well, at the top, if you see here, we have these knock widgets that display the overall health of several crucial applications and VPNs. And just below that, we have graphical detail on those individual metrics and how they've trended over time. So below that, we have some high-level metrics like total users for important services and the availability of cloud applications. Then if we see the next row here, it goes into slightly more granular detail on individual component health for certain applications. And at the bottom, we have widgets. So these would normally just be widget logos. They've been expanded at the moment, but they would be widgets that open up more detailed dashboards, that specific technology to dive deeper into their performance. And yeah, as I mentioned, clicking on those widgets will open up deeper dashboards. They open up in a new tab, which quickly lets you investigate a troublesome resource or move on to the next possible source of the issue without accidentally closing this overview dashboard. Then from there, if you double click into individual graphs, it will allow you to investigate how that's trended over time, so you can really control that dashboard. That graph, not that dashboard. Which you may have also been alerted on. So from quite quickly, you can drill into it. And then if you want, you can even get detailed information on a specific alert or keep track of things like your AWS spend or your Azure spend, so that you're making the best use of all of the resource that you have, making sure that you're not spinning up new servers in order to fulfill demand, which can easily be placed onto availability that you already have. So yeah, essentially having visibility into the entire IT stack, especially the resources that allow remote working, which seems like the new normal really, allows you and your teams to take control of availability, so that when trouble does arise, the right people are aware and on top of it, avoiding any frustration for people working remotely, and also allowing your company to maintain business continuity. And the final thing that I would say on these dashboards is that we have an entire library. So we have a ton of pre-populated dashboards pre-built dashboards to help you. So you don't have to go trying to spin up all of the new ones. You can just have a look at our library and then choose which ones you want to see. But we've worked quite closely with Vapor over the last, as Tim mentioned, about 9 months to a year, in order to make sure that their dashboards are optimized and showing what they want to show. So we can work with Vapor to produce those for you. So the next thing that I want to speak about is we've had a lot of buzzwords in the technology industry, and I guess the most recent example that comes to my mind is AIOps. Everyone's saying AIOps, AIOps, which is true in a lot of cases. It is where the business was focusing over the last 4 or 5 years as well. But a new one is unified observability. And make no mistake about it, over the next 4, 5, even decade of years, observability is going to be that key buzzword. So, companies, not just LogicMonitor, but a lot of companies are trying to move over into providing that overall visibility of applications, logs, infrastructure, all of that. So yeah, the move really is to have that one solution. And today we provide an unparalleled intelligent infrastructure monitoring, including network performance for hybrid and multi-cloud environments. This includes traditional infrastructure, along with things like cloud native things, which can include Kubernetes and Docker, so that you can really understand what's happening. And then our most recent acquisition is a company called Airbrake. Airbrake provides deep insight into applications, so code level visibility, and the performance, and also that end user experience, so that you know where it's happening. And a company of ours that has really taken to that is ASOS. So really trying to see when a customer gets onto the website, then goes clicking through the checkout process or is on the website, at what point do they drop off? at what point are the customers saying, no, I don't actually want to buy, and hence relating that to how it's generating, how it's correlated to the revenue of the business in its entirety. And that kind of speaks to what I was alluding to earlier, that IT leaders now are business people, and they need to have an understanding of that business in order to be successful, really. Then we have LM Logs. We acquired a company called Unomaly, and they essentially offering contextual automatic anomaly detection of log events, and that's in relation to infrastructure metric data, so that you can understand really why something is happening. The vision of unified observability is our mission at LogicMonitor, and building on our heritage and the market leading infrastructure monitoring. So the next thing I wanted to touch on, and this really, I say this all the time, Tim's heard me say this, I think 10, 20 times, but even when I describe LogicMonitor to friends and family, this is by far the easiest way to describe it. And I'm going to go deeper into each specific one of these, but it's essentially seeing more, knowing more, and doing more. So it gives you that visibility to start with, then it gives you the contextual data insights, and then it allows you to make data-driven business decisions. So that's essentially what this slide entails. If we dig a bit more into how we see more, so starting off with the platform's ability to help you see more, is the platform has been designed and developed with unified monitoring top of mind. So with it, you gain contextual visibility into the entire enterprise IT stack, and all the way from applications to servers down to networks, whether they're in traditional data centers, in private cloud environments, or public cloud platforms, or a combination of any of these architectures. It's LogicMonitor's ability to monitor seamlessly in hybrid architectures that really stands us out from other monitoring products. What's also, I would say, quite important to note is that we monitor in context. So for example, through LM Service Insight, which, where is it on the screen? Okay, well, LM Service Insight, we make it quite easy for you to be able to dynamically group all of the different components that are part of the IT service, meaning that a contextual view of performance and availability is given to you. So this is popular with one of our customers called Q2E Banking, and so they're essentially a digital banking software vendor, and they said that it was extremely useful to strategically plan their capacity management in quite a dynamic environment. They had all of the different technologies that I've spoken about today. And then we provide this full stack visibility quickly with a secure agentless collector approach, which means results within minutes, even during proof of value, which is typically, I mean, Tim will remember that we went through a proof of value with them as well. Knocked Splunk out the park, but went through one of those with them. And yeah,
it's interesting you say that, because if you look at that infrastructure that you have there on the screen,
yeah,
most companies have most of that, all of that, or some of that. We have all of it. But as you said at the beginning, there's multiple different platforms to be able to monitor it with, and this sort of highlights why we came to you guys, and we wanted one platform that would monitor all the applications, the databases, the network itself, the servers, virtual, in the public or the private environment, that allowed us to see everything under one dashboard, or multiple dashboards that we're able to see, without us having to have 5 of those. And I think that's really important to try and get across to the people that are on the call, is it is one entity that can see it all from end to end, and therefore you don't have 5 or 6 different platforms that you're looking into. I think it's really important, because it does highlight that very, very effectively.
Yeah, it really is that, and thanks for saying that, because like I mentioned, observability is going to be the new buzzword, and companies are really trying to move towards that. And the reason I actually took this is me sharing a personal life a bit, but I had a few job offers on the line when I chose to come to LogicMonitor, and that for me, that product roadmap made me see that LogicMonitor really is going to become one of the leading players in this market, and that's why I ended up joining LogicMonitor, because they were highly acquisitive. You know, we got Anomaly on board, we got Airbrake on board. Big steps in the right direction in my mind.
But we noticed that, if you remember rightly, when we were doing the proof of concept and we put it on our Beam stack, that it highlighted some of the challenges that we wouldn't have seen until 2 or 3 or 4 days later down the line, which may have caused a fault, an internal fault, whatever reason it was. But it highlighted us when it gave us a fault log, so that if you continue running at this pace, you potentially might have an issue in 3 or 4 days' time. And that just made us be a bit more proactive and a bit preemptive on our support on the Beam stack, rather than waiting to see if it was going to be an internal problem or not later on down the line. It saved us so much time, even on the concept piece, when we had a look at it. And I thought that was really intuitive of how it looked and how it monitored us, and then said, if you carry on running like this, within 4 days you're going to be running hot and you're going to have a problem. So you need to have a look at it early doors.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Thankfully, you guys had that problem, so that made the sale quite a bit easier.
Yeah.
But no, I can, of course. But it does mean that in the proof of values, a lot of our customers, it's not just yourselves, a lot of problems that they didn't realize existed came to light, and then they were like, we really do need a bit more visibility into the stack that we have. So I think I kind of spoken to the death about this, but really, Airbrake is a tool that doesn't do APM completely. They're more specifically targeting the ability to deploy fast. So AppDynamics, great company, I don't want to badmouth it at all, but one of the biggest difficulties with AppDynamics was the fact that it's quite difficult to deploy. It takes a lot of training for internal IT staff. It takes a lot of professional services engagement in order to get it fully deployed. Airbrake really was brought on to make sure that whilst it has to be, agent-based or APM, it makes it a really smooth deployment process. Because personally, I think that's one of the USPs of LogicMonitor. So yeah, that's really plugged in quite well into our stack. And with Airbrake and our APM offering, all of the features for free, you can have for 30 days with absolutely no payment details or anything required. So even if you just want to have a bit of a play around with it or try it out, then absolutely can do that. Now, if we move into the knowing more, so if I were to, I don't want to bore you with kind of the spiel that I normally go through, and I'm worried that I want to save some time for questions at the end, but some of these are the ones that I want to talk through. So dynamic thresholds. Dynamic threshold is a big shift from static thresholds, and AI ops capabilities really does help that happen. So the way that I always talk about dynamic thresholds is using an example. So let's say, Tim, who do you bank with?
Sorry, mate, it was on mute. Lloyd's.
Lloyd's. All right. Let's say Lloyd's, for example. Tim, you're going to have a mobile banking app, which I'm sure you would want to log on to. Sometimes many times during the day. Even just how do you log on to it? Is it fingerprint, or is it a code or face recognition?
Yeah, fingerprint one. Yeah.
Fingerprint. Okay, fantastic. So the fingerprint will have an application which then goes into a database to pull up your specific data, your biometric data, which then has to connect into where the money is being held for you. Maybe even connect to some stock exchanges if you have different products like ISAs or trading ISAs. So before you know it, all of these different applications are connected, and you've got about 30, 40, 50 different applications that need to be monitored. And it's quite difficult to see where the problem might lie. So Tim, for you, if it takes if it takes 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds instead of the normal 0.2 seconds, you're not going to notice a huge difference. You might just put it down to, a slight, internet issue or whatever it might be. But if it started being about 10, 20 seconds, that's when you know that there is a bit of a problem, or it might even give you an error sign saying you can't actually log in. So what our APM and the LogicMonitor really is going to do is give you the dynamic threshold. So it's going to learn what normal is. If, let's say, 8 a.m. is a common time for people to be logging onto their mobile banking app, at 8 a.m. it's quite a popular time for people to be logging on. So naturally, the latency or the response time is going to be slightly slower. If it is slightly slower, it's not going to give you a sea of false positive alerts. It's not going to say, oh my God, there's something broken, we really need to fix this. Dynamic thresholds will learn what the new normal is at different times in the day, different times of the year, different times of a specific month. So it's big for one of our customers. If there's a sporting event on, naturally traffic is going to be high, lower latency. So the dynamic threshold will tell you when an anomaly comes, which is outside of what should be the new normal. So proactively, it'll tell the team that this has started to go to 1 or 2 seconds response time instead of the 0.2. Give it some attention now so that the end customer, so when Tim is logging in, it doesn't take him 10 seconds or it doesn't give him an error message. So that's really what dynamic thresholds are there for. Configuration changes. With a lot of products out there in the market, if something changes within the environment, it may not pick it up very quickly, and even if it does, actually having it deployed and monitoring is quite difficult. So we have this thing called NetScan in LogicMonitor, which allows it to, on a daily basis or however often is required, allows you to scan the entire network, and then if there are any changes, automatically adds those devices into your dashboards or your monitoring suite. And then synthetic transactions is the last one really, but this is more for the DevOps teams. Synthetics are there to make sure that you can emulate what a customer, you can emulate how a customer might behave. Or if you're, say, preparing for Black Friday, you want to see if this amount of traffic loads onto our networks, then will it cause a problem? And the synthetics are there to make sure that you're well prepared for those eventualities. So, emerging infrastructure issue is the most important aspect of knowing or quickly finding the root cause analysis. And the main thing that we focus on here really, I know that there's a lot on the screen, but the main thing that we focus on here is making sure that the mean time to repair or the mean time to resolution, whatever you want to call it, is rapid. So it's as quick as it possibly can be, because we don't want those kind of war room scenarios where the network team, the database team, the applications team, the business teams even get involved in one room. Everyone's time is wasted trying to solve one issue that is taking ages to find because it really is a needle in the haystack. So the mean time to resolution is where we want to help. And in order to do so, LM Logs is there to give you the contextual observability. So if an alert has been triggered, where specifically within the events was the problem? And then if you use the APM tool in tandem with that, which line of code specifically was the problem? And then the specific person who can deal with that matter will be alerted, and then they can solve it, meaning that all of these siloed teams don't have to come into one room in order to solve a problem. So this one is really kind of, it's related to ARs. That's why I was a bit hesitant to say it is a buzzword, but the fact is it does exist. So the key differentiation of our log monitoring and analytics approach with LM Logs is the powerful patented algorithms that provide IT teams with the real-time visibility and intelligence. And that is automatically correlated by putting it into context with log data and IT infrastructure metrics. So there's huge value in getting the logs in the same place as your metrics and get it all analyzed very quickly and automatically. In our capability, there's also the ability to filter and search. So if you want to filter for a specific thing within LM logs, then we do have the ability to search for that. And yeah, I always say that LogicMonitor is an infrastructure monitoring tool first. So the reason that it was made was infrastructure. And logs and APM kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of have been tag-ons to the central core platform that is infrastructure. But the fact that it's been done through acquisition and on top of that in-house development means that they're all now fully integrated into the platform, and those pieces are integrated through companies that also were purebred for their specific areas of comparative advantage. So it's a complete offering, and it's very, very unified observability across LogicMonitor. I think that's enough on the normal part. If we talk about how you can do more as a result of all of that, to make decisions on IT infrastructure optimization is based on facts. So to automate IT operation processes based on trusted insight through our integrations, and to move towards a true AI ops approach is what we want for our enterprise customers. Today, our platform has an extensive library of pre-built real-time dashboards, which I alluded to earlier, to help make technical or business decisions based on facts, so that you get information that you can trust fast. We can also work with you to create dashboards, professional services, or even, myself, I've been known to do some dashboards for customers, which are tailored specifically towards your business. For example, with Ted Baker, which is one of our customers, they have built dashboards that show business-centric information pertinent to supply chain and order processes. So in this way, LogicMonitor is kind of providing the benefits beyond just IT. So it's relating to that business. Next, using our data forecasting capabilities, we make it easier to forecast and predict future trends regarding resource needs. So this trusted information is extremely valuable in proactive capacity management and optimization in a hybrid infrastructure. We also help you to automate IT ops. Being an API-based platform, we seamlessly integrate with many enterprise ITSMs, incident response, infrastructure as code, and instant communication solutions. For example, we've got a very, very strong relationship with ServiceNow, and if I may say so myself, one of the best integrations on the market with ServiceNow. And the integration really helps ensure that the right tickets are being created, and to help with CMDB hygiene, making sure that the ServiceNow CMDB is up to date and factual. So from this, you can kind of see that LogicMonitor is a lot more than just your typical infrastructure monitoring and analytics platform. And that's why we call it IT infrastructure intelligence, as opposed to just a infrastructure monitoring platform. So that's it for me. Obviously, happy to take any questions that you guys might have.
I'm glad to hear it, because there are actually quite a few. Do you have any questions, Tim, before we go to the audience?
No, listen, I really appreciate that, because it's been a while since I saw it, actually. So probably a year or so now. And it's nice to have a little refresher, especially, look at some of the customers that are running it, Netflix and people like that. It's, if you can run Netflix's platform, it can certainly run ours and our clients, definitely.
That's one of the questions, actually. There were some really impressive brands mentioned throughout the slide. So I guess from a credibility perspective, it's proven that it can work for organisations of that size and stature. Is it genuinely affordable then, is the question from one person, for organisations with perhaps pockets that aren't as deep?
That's a great question, and I know that it's a pertinent question to all customers. Money is always going to be a factor, and the answer really is yes. I mean, the pricing is quite transparent, and like I said, some of our biggest customers have over 100,000 employees, but we also have customers that have 5, 10, 15, even 50 employees, because it is an affordable platform, and it's based on the size of the environment. So a larger environment will mean a larger amount to pay, which I'm sure is the normal across most companies. But there are some monitoring tools in the market that are built specifically for enterprise customers. So the company I worked at before, they had a minimum requirement that customers have to have 100 million in recurring revenue, which is ridiculous. And charging about $10,000 per license. Ours is $20 per device in most cases. And as companies scale, that price really does go down.
There's a question here as well. It's a hot topic. We've been speaking about it a lot, Tim, recently, about sustainability. And there's a question here about if the solution can help, particularly for an organisation that's trying to reduce the carbon impact of its IT infrastructure. Is there anything you can do to help in that respect?
I absolutely love that question. Absolutely love it. I'm actually a vegetarian myself. Need to become a vegan as soon as I can, but the reason I do it is for the environment. So it's close to my heart, that question. I would say yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, especially with a remote workforce, teams are currently just spinning up new resources as and when they need it, which means not only are they charging more to their own company, but it also means that they're taking up more data space, more data centers, more technology that requires more energy. So it's all about kind of the capacity planning, which is where I think the environmental benefits come into it. If LogicMonitor can show you that this CPU is only using 4 gig of RAM when it has the capability of 16 gig of RAM, and you want to implement a new service on it which only needs 2 gig of RAM, there's no need to spin up an entire new resource to fulfill that extra 2 gig. Just add an extra VM onto the server that you already have for 16 gig of RAM. Before you know it, you've got a really optimized cloud spend, you've got optimized hardware spend, and you're using less energy, which is where the sustainability part really comes into it.
Definitely. I'm just going to go through some more questions here. If anyone else has anything they want to ask, if you just want to type them in the panel. So there's something here, Tim, this is perhaps a question more for you, because it doesn't solely relate to application monitoring, and it asks for your opinion as to, in your opinion and from your experience, particularly since the start of lockdown, have people's IT infrastructures got a bit too much? Are their tech stacks a bit too complicated now?
Yeah, potentially. I think there's two flavors of that. I think people in we call it the pandemic, the last 2 years have potentially shrunk that infrastructure, especially on-prem infrastructure, because as Sammy was saying before, having a remote workforce and then trying to come into an on-prem piece of kit, depending on your internet speed and whatever that may be, might be a challenge. So they might have consolidated a lot of that. I do think there's still a lot of changes in the space, in the market. We're seeing it. We're seeing lots of clients wanting to talk to us, interestingly, about how, I call it the new world. We know we're not going back 5 days a week into the office, most people. How do we make them more secure? How do we manage them more effectively? How do we look after them? How do we consolidate that resource and that hardware and that infrastructure? So I think if you had a broad slice across it, would be most people are going to spend money on some infrastructure, IT infrastructure at some point this year, but most of it will be in either a private or a public cloud service rather than an on-prem in their employer's office, as it were.
One question here says it looks complicated, and from a functionality and sophistication of that functionality, I guess it is. But the kind of second part of that question is whether the solution is purely for techies, so to speak, for people that are organisations that are going to self-serve, or I suppose if you can perhaps help them with some of the data that comes out.
Yeah, let me answer that. I think Sammy will cover it at the back end, but yeah, it does look complicated. The dashboards can look complicated, and it's a slightly new world for most people that we're going to manage or give them eyes on their tech stack, which techies have predominantly had. But if you're in senior management or you sat around a board, you're going to want to know what that information is, but you're also going to want to be able to understand it. So it is quite simple to understand once you get the dashboards built correctly for you, and it must be simple because I can understand it, right? And I'm no techie, as you know, so I can understand where it is, what it's telling me. That dashboard that Sammy showed earlier was pretty straightforward, really. There's many people on the VPN. It was that optimization. It was that. We can make it as granny, as deep and as difficult as you want, but in general, people want to be able to see, is it up and is it working? And is it going to fall over? And if it did fall over, why did it fall over? And that might be different applications, different dashboards. Different people different people inside the business might have different dashboards. What all have to say? So consequently, it's building the dashboards for the right people to be able to see it in the right way. Take as an example, contact center manager. What we used to see for voice, still see for voice. How many calls are queuing? How many calls have been answered? How many calls have been dropped? What does it feel and look like? That's been quite standard in our world for quite some time. Take this as an analogy. You're just doing that on your stack and having a look at it in greater detail and understanding what's going on across your applications. And that, especially from a remote workforce, is going to be really, really key moving forward. So it's not as complicated as people might think.
Is there anything you want to add, Sammy?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just hang on to that. So to get back to the question, if you are a techie, don't get me wrong, you're going to have a lot of fun with the product and platform. Monitor your kids' electric toothbrushes, your husband or wife's hair dryer, whatever you want. You can really have a lot of fun with the product. And sometimes you'll look at data that you don't even need to, but you're just curious about. So if you're a techie, you'll have fun with it. But it is designed to make sure that business people who may not have that technical prowess can still understand it. And that's why those pre-built dashboards are there, and is a normal part of our professional services engagement to make sure that those dashboards are built so that the COOs, the CTOs, the CEOs of the companies can have a quick overview. And plug in APM to it, and you can also see how potentially it relates to your revenue, which is
Katie, we've just gone back to Sammy and the team and just asked them to tweak some of our dashboards with them of what we want to see. Now we actually want to see something a bit more granular on certain services.
Yeah.
So we've worked with them to actually strip that right back down to see what we want to see. Now we've used it for quite some time, so I think that's important. You might want to change stuff as you go along, and that's where we come in to help and support.
Yeah, so customers can have their own roadmap as well as to how sophisticated they want to get.
Correct, yeah, and they can work with us to build it, and if we can't build it at our end, we'll work with Sammy and his team to build it effectively for the client.
Absolutely.
You might have answered this. You might have answered this question already, Sammy. But earlier on in the slides, you mentioned what you believe makes LogicMonitor different. Is it the fact that it's one platform, one holistic solution? Someone's mentioned the fact that it's a crowded space. Would you say that that's what makes LogicMonitor stand out?
It's a good question. I'd say there are three things mainly that make LogicMonitor a bit different, and that's through having a bit of knowledge of the other monitoring vendors out there. The things that we do really well, and we would, I guess, differentiate on, is one, the speed to deployment. Like the number of customers that I've seen spent extraordinary amounts of monitoring and end up using about 2 or 3% of their licenses is ridiculous. And that only happens because it's difficult to deploy. Teams don't want to put in the time to to get trained up, because they've always got bigger things to sort out. So the speed to deployment is really key. Like I mentioned, one of my customers, even just a week ago, are running a proof of value with us. They've deployed over 1,000 devices in less than half an hour, which is, to me, almost wizardry. Like it's like magic. So I'd say that's one key differentiator. Second one, I alluded to earlier, there are products out there for just cloud or just on-premise.
Yeah.
We provide that hybrid kind of seamless visibility. I'd say that's the second one. And the third one is what you've just alluded to, the movements that LogicMonitor are making into observability. So a bit of context about LogicMonitor: we're private equity backed by Vista Equity Partners. They came on board, I think, in 2016. Ever since, it's been a business that invests a lot in other companies, so acquiring other companies, but also R&D. The CEO is really good at giving us visibility into that. He said that last year our annual recurring revenue, I think, was just in excess of about 200 mil, and they spent 130 million of that on research and development, which I'm not sure if I was allowed to share, but now there it is. But yeah, it really just does mean that the product is getting updated all the time to keep up to the trends of new technologies being added to the market.
I've just got two.
Katie, I just want to add to that, and I mentioned it earlier. It's us, and people on the call knows about how we work and who we work with. But it does come down to the people, because you've got to be able to work with the team, understand what you're trying to achieve, and actually be able to deliver that as well. And that's really, really important. So you can't do that if you've not got the backup and support of the platform provider that you're working with. And that's why we chose LogicMonitor. The cards on the table, we took money out of the equation. It was about the people that we could work with, and we like the look of them. We like the look of how they're growing and what they wanted to do. And they felt like a big us, if that makes sense. They had the 200 million, but they felt like a small company, but obviously a large company at the same time. So
yeah,
it was a
makes sense.
Yeah.
There's two more questions. I'm going to save one till the end because it basically just allows me to wrap up the whole session. So I'll save that one. Someone has asked, in their organisation, they feel like there's been a lot of investment in various types of technology, particularly over the last 2 years. And they've asked the question about, I guess, the business case for LogicMonitor, if you can help them work out those numbers, not just to justify it from an investment point of view, but to talk about it in terms of a return on investment to their organisation.
Yeah, listen, whoever's asked that question, we're more than happy to come and have a conversation with you. And I'll share why we made the decision internally, why we did it, and what difference it made to us. And take some of our challenges that we had, and take some of our good points and bad points away. More than happy to sit down and have a conversation around that and try and help them. And I know Tammy will be.
Yeah, exactly the same. I'd echo that almost entirely. We also, the sales team invested a lot of money in a tool called Decision Link, probably the most expensive tool that we have. Decision Link is basically a tool that allows you to create a business case quite quickly for a customer. So we can jump on a call with a customer in about half an hour. We can populate, how much time is being spent on these kind of things. Yeah, plug in a number of different values, and then it spits out how much time it will take to get a full return on investment.
Nice.
So we can support,
Just to cover that, we started off as a networking business, and moved into voice and backup storage and Veeam and applications and services. And over the years, we've got a complex network across 5 data centers, hundreds and hundreds of endpoint units out there, critical switches, network services, as you said earlier, Betfred, they run 24/7, 365, and we've got clients who run like that. And consequently from there, you would have a normal networking application that would monitor your network. The old way would be SolarWinds NetFlow, if people are new to that, understand that language. But we needed a platform that went right across the stack. So not just the network, but right into the voice applications, right into the VMs, right into the platform, right into cloud, and all that, so that we've got one visibility of it. And that, I think that's the massive difference here between, yeah, you can go and have a look at your network, yeah, you can go and have a look at the servers, yeah, you can go and have a look at that. But actually, we wanted to be able to see it all, or what did we want to be able to see, but have it all in one place that we can build the dashboards for, because it's only going to get more complicated in the next 5 years. So consequently, we need a network and a platform that will allow us to be able to monitor all our services, but as we grow. And that was really important for us.
I'm going to have to wrap us up because the software is trying to kick us off. I think it's trying to tell us we've delivered a great 60-minute presentation that we thought would take 40. But the final question, which I think is a nice one to wrap up with, is someone has asked if they can have a go. And I think they mean, can they have maybe a one-to-one demo? So you might want to just end with that in terms of how people can get more information.
Yeah, listen, coming to the team, you know, if you've not got an account manager that you know about today, you can email me direct at tm@vaporcloud.com if you want to come through me, or info@, the details are there on the screen. And we'll pick it up, and me and the team and Sammy and his team will look after you. I'm more than happy to do that. That's what we've put the platform, that's why we've put the webinar on for. But people don't always get to see it and understand what we can do. Therefore, if you can see it and have a look at it and you want to touch it and feel it, yeah, of course we can. Yeah, we'll come and see you all day long. Or do it remotely. Yeah, either way.
Vapor have done all the hard work. They've done the security protocols, all of that for you. So you just have fun with it, really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've had it in the network for some time, and you know, and we're still learning on it. Don't get me wrong, but you know, we can show you what we do with it ourselves. More than happy to do that.
Perfect. Well, we've talked for an hour, so I'm going to let people go. And so thank you, both of you, for joining us today and sharing some of your insight and knowledge. Thank you, everyone else, for attending. You will receive an email shortly with a link to listen again in your own time. You can share that link with colleagues. And if you've got any further questions, please do ask the two speakers. So thank you very much. I hope you found the webinar useful.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Sammy.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.